I'm really pleased to welcome Dr. Hanan Khalifa, who will be talking to us about a really important topic today, which is the PISA 2025 foreign language assessment. And this is something that's going to affect all of us who work in language education in the future. Now, Hanan leads a cross-divisional team of experts in the field of language learning, teaching and assessment on providing evidence-based decision-making and developing language education, working with ministries of education worldwide and developing strategic partnerships at a global level. Previously, Hanan had held ministerial roles as advisor to ministers of education, university presidents, and worked for international development agencies and world-renowned educational firms such as the British Council, Admin East, AIR, FHI 360, and Hanan's expertise lies in language testing, educational assessment, monitoring and evaluation, standard setting, and research into methodology, instrument design, data analysis, and institutional capacity building. Hanan holds a PhD in language testing from the University of Reading in the UK. Okay, so over to you, Hanan.
Ben, thank you for such a lovely introduction. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to those of you who are joining us from around the world. I think one of the great things about COVID-19 is that we can do this and everybody can join in from the comfort of their own sofa or elsewhere. So, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to join you today and talk with you about the forthcoming PISA for language assessment. I will start by a brief on PISA, take you through the assessment, and end up explaining how Cambridge OECD partnership came about. OECD is, of course, the organization behind TIMSS and PISA. PISA is the world's largest survey of educational outcomes, which is taken up by 80 countries around the world since its introduction at the start of the century. PISA is administered in a 3-year cycle. Each cycle tests a sample of 500,000 students who are 15 years old in compulsory education, regardless of which grade they are in, as long as they are 15 years old. PISA tests traditionally assesses mathematics, science, and reading literacy. Quite recently, they also added financial literacy and the forthcoming foreign language assessment. But all PISA tests are really based on real life skills rather than a particular curriculum. The tests do not assess theoretical knowledge, but focuses on students' ability to apply the knowledge they have in real life situations. PISA assessment is a collaboration between OECD and participating country, and the countries are actually sharing with OECD, shaping the assessment, what they want to look at, how they want to look at it, how often do they want to implement it. All decisions are made by PISA governing board, which has representation from all participating countries. The continuous demand from PISA participating countries to introduce an assessment of foreign language skills in PISA was a key driver for OECD to investigate the feasibility of doing so. OECD looked at existing comparative studies on foreign language assessment, which specifically collected data at an international level from state-funded schools, so the same cohort which PISA looks at. Research took OECD back to the 70s and the 90s, where some of these studies took place. So for example, the 6-subject survey was on science, mathematics, civic education, literature, English as a foreign language, and French as a foreign language. It was carried out in 21 countries. However, there were issues with data collection and operational feasibility, leading to schools in some of these 21 countries declining participation. The data were also not connected in any way. Fast forward in the millennium, in 2011, you may have heard about this, a survey known as Survey Lang focused on assessing the first and the second foreign languages spoken in Europe. Only 14 European countries participated. And I will not be telling you how England or what England did in the surveys, but you can look it up yourself. SurveyLang was successful in data collection and trend analysis. So the key question was, why not repeat SurveyLang if it was successful, if it gave the same or similar results or trends like what OECD is looking for? The answer really lies in when the European Commission, wishing to see a repeat of SurveyLang, but at an international level, they also understood how complex it was to do SurveyLang and what a costly endeavor it was. And on the other hand, PISA already have the setup, is able to look at trends, and the participating countries of PISA have national teams in place, which enables smooth operations. All of this also coincided with, like the desire and demand to look into foreign language assessment coincided with the results of PISA 2018 Global Competence Survey. What the results showed is that 15-year-olds who speak more than one language are more aware of global issues, are more willing to engage with the perspective of others, demonstrated greater adaptability, are interested in learning about cultures. In essence, the results showed that 15-year-olds who speak more than one language are most likely to build bridges to other people, countries, and cultures. If we look closely at PISA for foreign language assessment, what it will do and what it won't do as well, we will see that it will build on existing state-of-the-art theory and practice. Its cognitive framework is based on two things: on the European Framework of Reference for Languages, the CEFR, and the socio-cognitive test development and validation framework, the one that the late Cyril Weir put forward in 2005. It will benefit from the PISA infrastructure, such as the use of existing platforms and sampling software. It will also make administration easier for countries. One, in terms of regularity. PISA foreign language assessment would be offered every 6 years, so every second cycle of PISA. The marking will be done via OMR and also an auto marker or a hybrid, pending participating countries' agreement. It will also implement a foreign language assessment in phases. The first cycle will assess English. The choice of English was based on the country's consultation of what is the most predominant first foreign language that they would like to assess to start with. PISA was also very clear about what it will not do. For example, it will not act as a driver of methodological innovation or be seen as a separate assessment program. And definitely, it will not exclude countries because of technical preparedness, financial constraints, or demands on schools. Also, it will not cover all language skills or all languages in the first round, which is out in 2025. It will only cover actually listening, speaking, and reading, not writing. So how does PISA define foreign language proficiency? Actually defines it as the ability to use a foreign language to communicate effectively. It requires a combination of communicative language competences and general competences that allow the foreign language learner to perform communicative language activities: reception, production, interaction, and mediation, which involve one or more combination of the following skills: reading, listening, speaking, or writing. It also requires the activation of appropriate language strategies. The factors PISA views foreign language proficiency, or the factors contributing to it, as the joint outcome of two combined sources of influence: the learner and the task. These in turn determine the cognitive processes that the learner employs when using a foreign language. Learner and task dimensions interact with a broad sociocultural context around them, which can be thought of as a diverse range of situations in which foreign language learning and use occur. Learner factors may include motivation, prior foreign language exposure, and self-efficacy. I want to stop at self-efficacy here because actually, if you could also take a look at the life competencies framework, where it mentions communication, learning to learn, self-efficacy, actually that would be actually quite a good introduction to what self-efficacy is all about. Task factors may include task purpose, function, complexity, time constraints, and linguistic demands. What is being assessed? It will assess listening. Now, in order to assess listening, all the countries need to do, and remember again, it's about the feasibility, is really a headset with a microphone or a speaker, so that, as you can see in one of those images, so okay, you can also integrate speaking into it. So it's listening, speaking, and reading in the first cycle. PISA will report the results according to the CFR levels. And just in case, if you haven't heard of the CFR yet, it is, and I'm sure you did. The CFR, in a nutshell, has divided language proficiency into 6 broad levels, starting from A1 to C2. Actually, the new companion of the CFR even goes below A1 to pre-A1. It describes what a basic user of a language can do at the A levels until they progress to the C levels when they become proficient users. As you see from the image, the levels are progressive. It's quite a jump from one level to another to another. The CFR has lots of illustrative scales for each language skill and strategies, and I really invite you to take a look at the new companion volume, and the latest edition of it, 2020, is already up on the Council of Europe website. But over here, let's take a look at one of those illustrative scales. And what you see here is the illustrative scale for overall listening comprehension. And some of the levels, to give you an idea of what an illustrative scale would cover and to show progression, of the levels. What you will see, and look at the different colors, you will see that there are more conditions in the A levels with words like provided they, or for example, yes, word like provided they, look at the turquoise highlight. Moving from the everyday, familiar, and personal to the unfamiliar, see the pink highlights. So in the pink, what you see is moving from everyday, familiar, and personal to the unfamiliar. If you look at the green highlight, it's moving from the concrete to the abstract. Looking at the yellow highlights, moving from short and simple to extended and complex. So the whole idea of progression. And if you look at the amber highlight, it's moving from the single units to phrases and expressions to discourse at a whole text level, and so on. So what will PISA for foreign language assessment deliver? It will deliver international comparisons of students' proficiency in a foreign language. Like I said, it's the first foreign language to be assessed is English. It is anticipated that such assessment will lead to a positive impact on learning and teaching English in state schools sector, especially for the countries who will be taking part in PISA FLA 2025. I mean, we all know how powerful PISA results is in actually changing national strategies or guiding national strategies. There is high hopes that that will push the agenda for foreign languages, whether it's English or any other language. Results will not be reported on PISA scales, but according to the CFR proficiency levels. And why is that? One, because actually that was quite a very important decision to use the CFR scales, not the PISA scales, because many countries will be able to see their performance on a scale they are familiar with. They have seen textbooks that has CFR on it. They have seen exams that has the CFR on it. They have seen curriculum that has the CFR levels on it. So they're quite familiar with it. When interpreting the performance results, each country's context will be taken into account. And that's where the background questionnaire that PISA offers will actually provide all of that contextual information. PISA will also deliver national diagnostics showing strengths and weaknesses in the mastery of foreign languages and outline achievement gaps and variation within the school system with the country. The value of the survey also lies in analyzing trends year on year. PISA will further deliver policy and practice lessons. The survey will provide the foundation for identifying the most effective policies and practices in terms of the teaching and learning of foreign languages in school settings. And of course, each country is different. It's not about cherry picking or see what the other country is doing really well and I'm just gonna borrow lock, stock and barrel and put it in my own country because circumstances are different and that actually not work. So it's not about cherry picking or applying without looking into the context. In terms of reporting and dissemination, a results report will be published. International seminar on best practices in language teaching and policy will be organized. Data will be made available for national analysis and international research collaborations. As for the timeline, the assessment framework has been developed and is published on OECD website. The piloting, speaking and listening is on schedule to take place next year. And I think already 5 countries have signed up for the pilot. The instruments are being developed as we speak. And in 2024, field trials begin. Well, I want you to look at field trials. I mean, actually, they are compulsory for all participating countries, but see the field trials more like a dress rehearsal of the procedures and to try the instruments out. In 2025, the main survey will be implemented, and in 2026, data analyzed and results released. Finally, in 2027, data is made available for national analyses and research. A thematic report will be launched, an international organizational conference organized. Let's take a look at what the English test task may look like. Now, for the reading, for example, what you see at this table, what you see in this table is CFR levels from pre-A1 to C1, and that's what the test will cover. You've got reading, task types, discrete definition with the graphic, and the task types will differ from one level to the other. But also, if you look at the cognitive processes, you see what cognitive processes each task in each level is planned to evoke or bring forward. And of course, this is based on a theoretical construct of reading. This is a sample task of a B1 CFR level. And I mean, if you're familiar with Cambridge Key, for example, for schools, or Cambridge Preliminary for schools, or young learners, you will see that the task looks very similar to them. Listening, again, if you look at the cognitive processes at the pre-A1, it's about input, decoding, then going all the way up to meaning construction at a text level. The audio input could be short, informal, to a little bit more formal, could be from a monologue to a dialogue as well. And here's a sample listening task from pre-A1 to A2. Maybe I should stop here and explain that actually the test, the FLE, is a multi-level test. It is computer adaptive. So the algorithm goes up and down, the level goes up and down, the level of the test goes up and down according to the level of the students. And finally, speaking has 5 different sections, starting from reading aloud to long, short turn, and again from pre-A1 to C1. And here's a sample speaking task of a long turn, probably covering the B2 and C1. Now, what really makes such a task difficult or less difficult is not about the task itself, but it's about the output of what the students provide. So the students could provide something quite simple or quite complex, and depending on, for example, how many elements they would be using in this task, or and how long they would be speaking for. question that we usually get asked is, so why Cambridge? Why did OECD pick Cambridge or Cambridge rather than anybody else? And it's a very important question, um, because there were 5 key factors behind the partnership. The first factor is the fact that Cambridge led or had the leading role in SurveyLang in 2011. Of course, there were other partners on the Spanish language, foreign language, on the Italian foreign language, on the German foreign language. Cambridge role was on English, and also as the coordinator, and let's say has a coordinating role and a leading role in terms of test specifications and task specifications and the design of the tests and the anchor items and the statistics. The second key factor is actually the long-standing history that Cambridge has with the evolution of the CFR, especially on English language. If you look way back in the 70s, where the wastage and threshold and vantage series came about by Van Eyck and John Trim, and also that was something that Cambridge have used for its own exams as, way back in, I think, 70s or 80s. But also when the Council of Europe wanted to look at an English level, that is, so how is my English level in France equal to the English level in Germany? And when they looked around for data, for lots of data, actually the database that was available was Cambridge on English, and there were other organizations for other languages. I don't know if you know this or not, but actually our database existed since 1913 and evolved since then. The third key factor was also Cambridge early adoption of the socio-cognitive framework and the role it played in informing its development, as well as implementing it in Cambridge. And I think when the late Cyril Weir was putting together the socio-cognitive framework, he was looking into our internal model of VRIP-Q, which is validity, reliability, impact, practicality, that provides that looks into the quality of the test or the excellence into the test. And while he was working on the book, and I think there was sort of like we were informing each other of test development and validation. Fast forward, starting from 2006, Cambridge also published Cambridge Assessment together with Cambridge University Press, published a series about the socio-cognitive framework in terms of reading, listening, speaking, and writing, together with examples showing how performance at A1 will differ from A2 from B1 in terms of cognitive processing. The fourth factor was the fact that Cambridge have done benchmarking studies of English as a foreign language across many countries since 2003 to date. So there's already an understanding of levels of English proficiency in several countries. And also an understanding of whether, for example, the rubric should be in the L1 of that country, or should it be in English, and when would it be in the L2 in a particular country. Last but not least, OECD and Cambridge has very similar missions. It's the mission of benefiting individuals and society through the pursuit of excellence in education, a shared mission. These 5 factors made Cambridge a perfect partner. Having said so, it wasn't an easy ride, because all of PISA governing board, so all 80 countries has to say yes to the partnership. And if one of them said no, that partnership wouldn't have existed. Our role in the partnership is to advise on and contribute to the foreign language assessment framework, which we have done that, and it's now out in the public domain. Design and develop the English tests for computer-based or online delivery. Whether it's computer-based or online delivery, that is something that the participating countries will advise OECD on. Our role as well is to develop the scoring guides and to train the speaking auto marker. Remember, I said that we could be doing the auto marker for speaking, but also hybrid. And again, it is the country's decision whether they want to go auto marker only or hybrid only. We will be advising OECD as well on that. I mean, countries are really well aware of the impact PISA has on improving educational outcomes. And I think for me and for us, for both parties, OECD and Cambridge, it is about improving educational outcomes. And we really hope that countries will take up that opportunity, that golden opportunity, to find out where they are now in terms of language proficiency, so that they know where they're going to go forward. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening for me. Obrigada, gracias, and terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Hanan. That was really super clear, very clear, and I think so clear that it didn't generate any confusion or questions. So, but there are a couple of questions which I've heard raised, when people are thinking about the PISA foreign language assessment. And I thought I'd just start off with those if there are people trying to formulate their questions. And one of those is, you said that that PISA has can have an impact on educational policy. And I was wondering if you could kind of say a little more about that. Why does it have an impact? And why is it important for us to understand what it is?
Okay, thank you. Excellent question, Ben. And really, without naming any country, yeah, I think the value in PISA is about. I mean, countries want to improve mathematics, for example, yeah, but also countries would like to know where they are in the global platform, in the arena. Yeah, they also want to understand, why is my neighbor progressing more than me? And actually, why is my neighbor progressing more than me generated a whole set of discussions about, okay, it's good that you're looking at your neighbor, or at your next door neighbor, or at the end of the road neighbor. However, each country has its own specific context. So let's use the results as your baseline, and let's talk about your action plan or your national strategy that will get you up a level. It is, I mean, I'm okay. So if you're watching football, and I know that there's a very important match today because my husband is watching it tonight. You also look at the FA Cup, the leaderboard, right? Or the league boards. I'm not a football fan, so I don't watch football. But people see, like, okay, so where is Manchester United? Where is Arsenal? Yeah, and I think that is sort of innate human. It's us wanting to know, where do we fare.
Yeah, that's right. There's a competitive element there, isn't there?
A bit, yes.
Yeah. Then there's some kind of more kind of practical questions in sense. So, why, for example, does PISA focus on 15-year-olds? Why not 10-year-olds or 20-year-olds?
Okay. So there is a very practical element that let's focus on one age group and have it throughout, since it started in, I think it was 2001 or 3? No, 2001. So let's focus on 15-year-olds and see the change in those 14-year-olds in 2010, in 2020, and in 2030, which ties in with National Visions 2030, for example. Yep. So that's a practical element. Another one, a 15-year-old, you sort of have also the cognitive element of a student has matured a bit, not a bit, has matured. So you're not assessing younger learners who may show anxiety, for example. The third, let alone GDPR issues that are coming in, and the parental consent that are coming in. So again, practicality. The third one is, in many countries, it is the time where students have to choose a different path, either to continue mainstream general education or go vocational or actually leave and do something else. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, right. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. And the last question I had again is a practical one: is how long are these tests going to be? Are they hours, or how long do you expect them to take?
Okay, so the foreign language assessment is optional. So the countries will have to say, okay, I want to opt in for FLA, or I want to opt in for the financial literacy, for example. The speaking, I think, is around 10 minutes, or yeah, 10 minutes max, probably. Listening is around 10 to 15 minutes, and reading is around 40 minutes. I mean, all in all, we're talking 90 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much. I mean, it's such an interesting topic and something that's going to be really important for all of us in the future, and which most of us didn't know anything about. So thank you so much for giving us this glimpse of the future here.